Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the clearest roadmaps ever created for the human mind, the Buddhist path to ending suffering, and we're going to do it step by step.
All right, let's get right into it by asking the big question, the one at the core of this whole thing. If suffering is a cycle, how do you actually, get out?
So here's our plan for today. First, we'll look at the problem, the cycle of suffering itself. Then, we'll uncover the key to unlocking it. After that, we'll identify the 10 specific chains that bind us, walk the actual path to breaking them, and finally, take a look at where that path leads.
Okay, so first things first, if you want to find the exit, you've got to understand the layout of the prison. We need to see what's keeping us trapped.
The engine that drives this whole cycle has a name, Paticca Samuppada, or what we call dependent origination. This is a really core principle. It basically says that our suffering isn't random. Nope. It comes from a super precise, predictable chain of cause and effect that kicks off with a fundamental misunderstanding of reality.
And look, this isn't some huge, abstract philosophical idea. The sources are pretty clear that this describes the lightning-fast, moment-to-moment process of how irritation or craving or stress just flares up in our minds all day, every day. It's literally the blueprint for our own inner turmoil.
So here's the cool part. If suffering works like a predictable machine, well then understanding how it works also shows you exactly where the off switch is.
And this just shows it perfectly. Paticca is a two-way street. The very same chain of events that creates suffering can actually be reversed to take it apart. It means if you can just break one link anywhere in that chain, the whole process just grinds to a halt.
So you're probably asking, what are these links? What exactly are the things we need to break? Well, in this system, they're called the Samyojana, or the 10 fetters.
The best way to think of these is like 10 specific mental chains, right? They're these deep-seated psychological habits that keep us chained to that cycle of suffering we were just talking about. The whole journey to freedom is really about learning to see and then systematically break these 10 chains.
Now, the first 5 are called the lower fetters. They're seen as being a bit coarser, a bit more obvious, because they're tied to our experience in the physical sensory world. This is stuff like that gut feeling that you have a solid, separate self, or just crippling doubt about the path, and of course, raw sensual craving and irritation.
Then you have the 5 higher fetters, and these are way more subtle, much more refined. This is stuff like becoming attached to blissful states in meditation, or a very subtle sense of I am or conceit, restlessness, and then right at the very root of it all is that deep-seated ignorance that started the whole cycle in the first place.
Okay, so this is where we get to the path itself. The actual journey of enlightenment is laid out as a gradual, step-by-step process of breaking these 10 chains. And this process marks out 4 very distinct stages of progress.
And here's something that's really crucial to get. The sources are so clear on this. It is not an overnight lightning bolt transformation. It's not like you just take a giant leap. It's a progressive, sequential path that unfolds through practice and through genuine insight.
The very first irreversible stage is called Sotapanna, the stream enterer. Why? Because this person has officially entered the stream that flows directly to enlightenment. They've done it by completely and permanently shattering the first 3 fetters. They no longer see a solid, separate self, their doubt is gone, and they're no longer attached to just mindlessly following rules.
All right, the second stage is the Sakadagami, which means once returner. This person has already broken those first 3 chains, but now they've also seriously weakened the next 2, sensual lust and ill will. The grip of those 2 is so loose now that this person is guaranteed to only be reborn into our world one more time, at the most.
Next up, we have the Anagami, the non-returner. Now, at this stage, sensual desire and ill will aren't just weakened. They are completely gone, wiped out. All 5 of the lower fetters are gone for good, which means this person will never, ever be reborn into the sensual world again.
And that brings us to the final stage, the Arahant, the worthy one. This is it. This is the person who has reached the end of the road. They have completely and utterly destroyed not just the 5 lower fetters, but also those 5 sneaky, subtle higher ones. All 10 chains are finally broken.
So what does that actually mean? What is it like to have broken every single chain and to have finally reached the end of this incredible journey?
Well, here's the most important point. The Arahant has completely dismantled the entire machine of suffering. By getting rid of all 10 fetters, That chain of cause and effect, the paticca samuppada we talked about, that leads to stress and pain, has been permanently, and I mean permanently, severed.
The sources describe this as a state of just ultimate peace. The cycle of birth and death is over. Every mental stain, from the most obvious anger to the most subtle trace of ignorance, has been totally uprooted. This is it, the realization of the highest goal, Nibbana.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. When you start to see liberation not as some far-off, mystical thing, but as a clear, step-by-step path of letting go of specific, identifiable mental habits, how does that change the way you look at the little frustrations and anxieties in your own life, day to day?